So what does that look like, though? How does one? Because sometimes when somebody comes, like your friend that you just told me about, sometimes when he comes to a church leadership will say, well, we don't want to be political. We don't want to be a political organization. And that can sometimes be used as a way not to engage with these sorts of things. Yeah. And I'm wondering how a Christian thinks about that or addresses that.
Well, you may not want to be political, or you may not be interested in politics, but politics is certainly interested in you. I think that Christians have to be careful about the way we engage with politics because, I'm a conservative politically and religiously, socially, but I have seen too many churches become the Republican Party at prayer. And progressive churches have the same problem, being the Democratic Party at prayer. The church can't align itself with one political party over another. That said, I think that we cannot, as the church, turn a blind eye for things like abortion, something as serious as abortion, but also religious liberty. This is such a big issue, religious liberty, that is simply not appreciated by a lot of pastors and lay people in this country. The growth, the advance of LGBT rights can only come at the expense of religious liberty. This is something you will not hear in the media, and you don't hear enough discussion about it among conservative Christians because they don't perceive how this can happen. I can remember as far back as 2004, 2005, when the whole gay marriage fight first ramped up. I was working at a newspaper then on an editorial board, and the constant refrain we heard from gay rights advocates was, how will my marriage hurt you? Right. Well, a lot of people on my side, the traditional side, said because marriage is embedded in so many laws. And, we made this explanation. Ordinary people never got to hear that explanation. The media ignored it, and people just didn't want to hear it. All they could think about was the nice gay couple that lived next door, and they wanted to do something nice for them. Well, guess what? Now we have gay marriage, and now we're beginning to see what's happening to adoption agencies. We see what's happening to Christian institutions, and on and on and on. If the Supreme Court of the United States rules in favor of some of the plaintiffs in a case they heard in October of 2019, I heard just recently as we're talking, if it finds that it is unconstitutional to discriminate against gays and transgenders in hiring, then game up for us Christians, because that will set a precedent that's going to allow for the punishment, the removal of tax exemption and all kinds of things from the church and from Christian schools and other institutions. My point simply is this, just to enable the church to have the freedom to be the church is going to require us to engage in politics. There's some people who criticize me in the Benedict option saying, you're saying we shouldn't engage, but we have to engage in politics. In the actual book that I wrote, I say we have to do this, but we also can't allow political engagement to be a substitute for intense engagement within our own communities to build ourselves up as a community and to anchor ourselves more fully in Christ. It's not an either or, but a both and. And we have to prepare ourselves for the day when politics are not enough. I think that's one of the things that frightens a lot of Christians. They think that we can eventually pull this out some way. As we're speaking, last night on CNN, there was a Democratic town hall about LGBT issues. Beto O'Rourke, who's not going to be the next president, but he's a candidate, he said that if he becomes president, he will take away the tax-exempt status of churches that discriminate. Well, that's never been said before by a presidential candidate. He moved the Overton window. I guarantee you that every single one of the Democrats believes that, although they haven't said it. We had better get used to that as Christians, that the Democratic Party is going to try to do this to us. Maybe not this cycle, but it's coming, and it's going to be more popular as the country de-Christianizes. We have got to fight for that, fight for the right to be ourselves. Because if we lose tax exemption, it might sound like a minor thing, but we lose tax exemption, then a lot of churches and Christian organizations are going to have to close. Christian schools are going to have to close. This is an existential matter for the church, and so many Christians are just complacent about it.